build my life. So the meaning of the song is similar to the one that we just sang again. So for people who call themselves Christians, what is that foundation that they want to build their life on? So for them, the Christians believe that Jesus is the name that they need to build their life upon. He's the one that is worthy to be called upon. He's the one who is worthy to be praised. And we just want to thank God for what He has done for us. That's what the song is about.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing.
song we're gonna do. So we've never sang this song here before, and we're trying something new. So what's gonna happen is like some of these words will be in different languages. So the first chorus is gonna be in English, so everybody will be able to sing, no problem. Gucci. Second chorus. Oh, sorry. You got it. Second time we repeat the chorus, it will be in Spanish. And then, yeah. And then when we sing the chorus again, it will be in French. And after that, it will be in Igbo, which is a Nigerian language.
Wow.
And we have a great singer with us today.
Hey, Nigerian singer. Oh wow.
Did you get
There's feeling it in.
Yes. And even though it's in different languages, I think we made it to where you can still sing to it. Even the Chinese, not the Mandarin one, it's still like, I think you use English characters, right?
You can still sing in English while the song goes on.
Yeah.
Sing
you can
in
still
English.
sing it, yeah.
You should try it in other languages. It's fun.
Make sure you're all singing.
Okay, and where's the sheet? Okay, I'm gonna need you to help me flip this because I should have printed it better.
You can use the handle that?
You can just put it down there. I can flip it. It's
Yeah.
It's not bad.
No, let's flip it.
The splendor of the King, clothed in majesty, all the earth rejoice, all the earth rejoice. He rises and falls in light, and darkness tries to hide. It trembles at his voice, it trembles at his voice. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God? And all will sing how great is our God. Age to age he stands, and No, it's okay. It's alright.
Oh, spot.
Yeah. So before I share my story, okay, so today what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tell y'all a little bit about me, my background, and my walk with Jesus. And but before that, we use a crave for story time. So
Richard. Or Jesse. Jesse hasn't been here long, right?
I will pray. Dear Heavenly Father, our Almighty God, we thank you. Thanks for you love us before we know you. Lord, thank you for your unconditional love. And thanks for gathering us here tonight. Thanks for the fellowship time. Lord, we ask, may your Holy Spirit come and be with us and inspire our hearts tonight. Fill us with our conversations and sharing with your truth and grace. We pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
okay, for those who don't know, my name is Joshua.
Hi, Joshua.
So I'm from Senegal, which is the next slide, which is what it looks like, but in the map. So right here, if you don't know what that is, that's Africa, West Africa specifically, and Senegal is right there. Yes, right there. But anyways, just tell you a little bit about me. My mother is from South Korea. That's her right there. My father is from Senegal, and actually my mom is just left Korea yesterday, so we went to visit family there. But anyways, usually when I tell my story, I go so far back and it takes too long and I get tired at the end. So I'm just gonna start like in Senegal, like when my parents got me. So like I said, my parents are from different countries, and not only that, my parents have different religions. My dad is a Muslim, my mom is a Christian. Don't ask me how they got married and all that. It's a long story. That's for another day. It just happens. People came home. Anyways, people from my mom's family were not happy. People from my dad's family were not happy because I'm from a very traditional Senegalese family. Very devout Muslims in my dad's side. It's scandalous that he married a foreign woman, and not only that, married a Christian foreign woman. And same thing for my mom, scandalous that she married a foreigner, not only that, an African. So, but anyways, so they were together. When they got married, they got married in Japan, moved to Senegal, and I was in the capital until I was 7 years old. I moved down south, which is more rural. So I'm a country boy actually. So in the country, that's where actually we moved to an area where my family, my extended family, the Swanes, which is my last name, that's where our people group are from. We call them Mandinka people. And so that is the tribe that I'm from. The tribe is very, like I said, traditionalist, very hardcore, strong in Islam, because we have religious schools, after our own names and stuff like that. But anyways, growing up, I grew up with a very special family. My mom, my dad, we had my grandmother, we had a couple of cousins. I grew up with 5 cousins, and so my house was always full of people. It was very interesting. Whenever it came to do holidays, Christian holidays, Muslim holidays, we all celebrated together. But when I was younger, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what to think. I thought I'm going with mom, I'm going with dad today, and so I went to both, but mostly to church because my mom is very strong-willed. But anyways, when I came to the age of 12, 13, I started to realize, okay, Josh, you look kind of different from everybody here. You have small eyes, you kind of, yeah, you don't always go to the mosque with your dad, and well, always going to the mosque with their dads. You're not fully Korean, and you're definitely darker than other Koreans, so like, what's up with that? So like, identity issues was my big thing. So the song that we sang that says, "Who am I?" That was a question that I've asked myself like my entire life. Who am I? Am I Muslim? Am I Christian? Am I Korean or African, or am I both? What am I? What am I? So that's a question that I've asked myself so much, and the answers to those questions were very important. If I'm a Muslim, I miss my mom, would be disappointed and sad and whatever. If I'm a Christian, my dad also would be sad and whatever. And so like every single question, every single time I asked myself that question, it was because it was very serious. Because whatever side I choose or whoever I choose to become, it had consequences. But the good thing is, like, my parents, they created this environment where I could just ask questions, and I could explore religion. My dad never forced me. My mom didn't say, okay, you have to be Christian, but I want you to come explore this side. And so I'm very grateful for that, because from a very young age, like, I knew that, they follow different religions, but again, like I said, when I turned 12, 13, I started to realize that, okay, some things are different. Even though I really wanted to, and I tried so hard to reconcile Islam and Christianity, that would have been my greatest dream ever, to just reconcile the two religions. But and even now when I talk to people say they're the same religion, but if you really think about it, the foundation of Christianity is that Jesus is God, which is blasphemy in Islam. The foundation of Christianity is that Jesus died and rose again, which is not true in Islam. The foundation of Christianity is that God is a Trinity, Father, Son, and Spirit, which is definitely blasphemy in Islam. So whenever I go to church, I hear that, and at church and come home, I'm like, oh, that's nonsense. There's no way that can all be true. And like, I grew up with this conflicting thing, and so like, I was like, there's definitely, you can't reconcile these two, because this is like the foundations of the religion. I mean, they share different like historical background. There are a lot of stories that are in the Bible, that are in the Quran. The Bible talks a lot about the Quran talks about Jesus and Mary and all that stuff. Very similar to a certain extent, but at the same time, the foundational things are different. So I came to realize that, well, it's Josh, you either choose one or another, or you don't choose anything at all. And so I chose nothing, because I felt like, well, if I don't talk about religion, I don't disappoint anybody. There are other better things in life than talk about religious stuff. I got school to worry about. I got friends and other stuff. So that's what we did. That's what I did for a while. I did pretty well at school. I did pretty well at with friends and stuff. But again, I came to realize, okay, maybe that's not going to satisfy me. There's still that question, like, who am I? What is my identity? And so, in the period of 3 years, I started asking questions to myself. So I started asking questions, okay, where do I fit in this world? Is life all about money, family, friends? Is it all it is about? But those questions, I was able to get some answers from it, and I was very touched by the message of the gospel. The gospel is the good news of Jesus. So again, like I said, the biggest question in my life was, who am I? And so in Christianity, in the Bible, it says that God created you in His image. It doesn't mean you're God, but it means that you are special in a way, that you are eternal, and you have this hunger for eternity, and you are special. And He gave you the choice to do whatever you want, to follow Him or not to follow Him. And for Him to create you in that way and to give you the choice and everything, He puts worth in your life. He puts worth in your life, worth and importance that doesn't come from human beings, but comes from God. There's something that cannot be removed. There's nothing that Richard can do or Sherry can do that will make me less important or more important, because my worth is determined by God. There's nothing else. So to me, that was very freeing. And not only that, that message is kind of also true in Islam too. That God thinks you're very important, and you're important basically. But like the thing that really touched me about the Christian message is that I didn't have to, conform a certain way for God to love me. Let me explain that. Christianity says, while you were still like sinners, while you were still against God, God showed His mercy on you. God showed His kindness towards you by coming to you and saying, "Here, I know you cannot clean up your life by yourself. I know you cannot live a perfect life like I asked you to, but I know that. But the only thing that is possible for you to be saved. I did that. I came down on earth and lived the perfect life, and I took the punishment, like the death that I should have died. The punishment of my sin. God took that for me. But anyways, that to me was very touching. Is that okay? I don't have to be a certain way for God to love me. God already loved me. It's a free gift of God. And God already made a way for me to be clean, a way for me to be in His presence. Because God is holy. If you're not holy, you cannot be in His presence unless you're sinless, unless you're perfect. So the way that He made us perfect is by basically taking our sins away, washing us by His own doing, His own action, His own sacrifice. So like whenever I talk to my Muslim friends, my cousins about this, and they always say like, why does God have to die? Why does Jesus have to die for me to be saved? God could just like erase everything, you know. He doesn't need to die. I think that's too much, maybe. But anyways, and that is a very valid question. That is a very valid question. It makes sense. Why would God, the God of the universe who created everything, why would He lower Himself so much to become a human, which is like so dirty? Like, I'm so dirty. Everybody here is kind of messed up. But why would He choose to come walk among us? That's a really good question. So the answer to that is that we have a very, very, very good God, a very loving God, and a very holy God. So how do those mesh together? So if you have a loving God, if God loves us so much, He would do whatever it takes for us to come with Him, like be in His presence. He would do whatever it takes. But God is also very holy and just. So that means every single thing that happens on earth, there will be an answer to it. Your wrongdoings, everything that you do, there will be somebody will have to answer to it. Nothing that you do will just be for, like, there won't be any, it's not like it's just gonna fly by. Everything has a consequence. So if God is perfectly just, God is perfectly loving, how could He just come to you and offer you, free, like, come to heaven? He can't do that because you have sins. So you cannot come to Him because you have sinned. And He's holy. You cannot be in His presence. So the way that it is reconciled in the Bible is that God Himself, the judge Himself, came down and said, okay, somebody has to pay this debt. Somebody has to pay for this sin, but I will pay it. Why would God's death cover everything? Is because He's God. If you try to cover, let's say I have $5,000 in debt, and you, let's say I have $10,000 in debt, and you come to me and give me all your money for some reason. I don't know why you would do that. Okay. The next day I come to you every time, and at some point you run out of money. I'm pretty sure you don't. Yeah. But if somebody comes to you that has an unlimited amount of money in the bank account, then he'll be able to cover for all of my sins. So when God decides to pay for our sin, He paid for every single one of your sins because His bank account is unlimited. He can pay for every single one of us. And so for me, this message that, okay, Josh, there's this God, and He loves you so much, and He loves you just the way you are, and He's going to take you just the way you are, not because of what you look like, not because of what you've done, not because of like whose side you have chosen, but because He loves you so much, because you are His beloved. And so all I have to do is come in His presence and humble myself. Okay, God, I want You in my life. I want You to become God in my life. I want You to govern my life. And so what that means is like God comes and changes your heart. He cleans your heart. You don't become perfect and then go to God. you come to God the way you are, and God cleans your heart so that you want to do good things. The good things are a result of a change of heart. So basically, and throughout my life, God has changed my heart in so many ways. Because of some things that happened in my life before I came to know God, I was very angry, insecure, and all those things, and so many other things that was really affecting the way I looked at the world, the way I was relating to people. But God really worked in my heart to where I'm like, wow, I'm very important. Wow, I'm clean. Wow, all these things. I can live my life for God, and I can live a very meaningful life for God. Money is not the end. Money is not the ultimate thing. Success, like being a doctor or whatever, is not the ultimate thing. Having the coolest friends is not always the ultimate thing, because all these things are temporary and it makes you happy for a little bit. But God is everything. God is everything. But that's short version. Thank you. That's it.
Questions?
Yeah, questions.
How does this decision come? Oh, you made a decision at some point. And what about, did that change your relationship with your dad?
Oh yeah, and that was actually the best thing that ever happened to me and my dad. Because before me becoming a Christian, I used to be terrified in talking to him. Like, whenever we have a conversation, I will make sure the conversation is not long, just quick, so that there will be less of a chance of him bringing up religion or asking me, okay, why are you not doing this, why are you not doing that. And I used to be terrified. And my dad is such an interesting person, very, how do I say, very different. First of all, you guys can tell by it because he married a foreigner and all that stuff. He's the way he looks at the world is very unique for his environment, for people around him. But I never got to know that because I was terrified talking to him. But when I went back in 2016, which is like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I got baptized, and I went to talk to my dad, and it was like the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life, which is like the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life. It took every ounce of courage for me to go through it. I mean, for me to walk and get up and go into the room and like, hey, Dad, you know what? I'm a Christian now, and yeah, it was very hard, but God gave me the strength. Like, even during those really tough times, I know for sure, like, I'm not that courageous, but God gave me the strength to go through it. But when I went in the room and told him that, and then he looked at me and he said, Josh, keep searching for the truth. I was like, that's it. Okay, you too, keep searching for the truth. But yeah, I was like, hey, that's great, because now he knows where I stand, I know where he stands. Even if we don't have the same religion, but at least now we don't have to be scared about talking. There's no this great taboo or this great unknown. And my dad and I have very interesting conversations now. I mean, I can see that we are very similar in a lot of ways. The way we think, the way we talk to people, the way we look at the world is very similar. And now we talk about religion all the time. We always talk about Trinity. We always talking about Jesus, Muhammad. Why do I think Jesus is God? Like where did he say that in the Bible, kind of thing. So some very interesting conversations. But at least now it is out of respect, out of curiosity, out of honesty, out of love. We're doing that, which is like the best thing that could happen to me and my dad, our relationship. Yeah. But anyhow.
So I guess do you find yourself still having lots of questions about God since you grew up in this environment, or
of course, all the time, all the time. I guess I'll tell you a little bit more about my story. When I came to the States, especially, okay, I'm gonna fast forward. When I went to college, especially, I was studying biology, and my professor, the dean of the science department, was very openly atheist, okay? Very openly atheist. And he would always ask us questions about God, you know, why do you guys think there's a God? I mean, like, look at all the fossils that we have. We're studying evolution, and especially when we read science articles that talk about like how we evolved, and especially like all those fossils that we found somewhere else in the world, how does that fit? If you go into botany, if you go into zoology, all those fields, they talk about, okay, how the different like, the family trees. I'm pretty sure you guys have to study that in science, where it started from this and then it branched out, okay? And then these guys have been separated for a while and then evolved different due to natural selection. They had different traits, and for a very long time they've been separated, and then somehow they became different species, kind of thing. I mean, those are very, how do I say? For a science guy, you look at what you have, concrete evidence, and so that raised a lot of questions in me. And as a Christian, you know, I had to answer those questions. You know, I can't just be like, okay, I'm a Christian, that's it. There's nothing else. But I'm also a student. I'm also always want to learn. But deep down in my heart, I know what God has done in my heart. Like, I know how God has changed my heart, and I know I can feel when I became Christian, I can feel that there's something that changed in my heart, and it's almost as if I can feel his voice, or not really his voice, but his presence, something in there that always, you know, gives me a hope that keeps going. So whenever I have a lot of questions about different things, I can always be assured that God is still there, but those questions are also still there, and I can always talk to people. And for a lot of questions that we have, a lot of people before us have asked those questions, and there are a lot of books, a lot of people you can talk to if you have questions. Don't be ashamed. Questions are very important for you to grow in your faith. Questions, as a Christian, you can have faith, you can be very confident, you can have a lot of faith at some point, and another time you can be very full of doubt. Why did God allow this bad thing to happen in my life? Why did God allow, let's say, my mother or somebody, you know, pass away when she did all these good things? Or you can have questions about other religions. Okay, wow, there are so many other religions around the world. Why do I think Christianity is the only religion? Those are very valid questions, and don't be scared of those questions. I think you should search for the truth, like my dad told me, to always search for the truth and do not be scared, because you should be more worried about finding the truth than being right. Be more worried about finding the truth than being right. Because around the world, a lot of people think that they're right. I think I'm right. But if we're really going to look for God, we need to be more worried about the truth. That's how Muslims, Christians, Hindus, Jews, if they really want to know the real God, they need to be willing to ask questions, and they need to be willing to seek for the truth, not just worry about being right. And that takes a lot of courage, and that takes a lot of help from God. Any other questions?
Did you have trouble, just like the whole idea that God would have a son, like that? What did you think about? Like, did you?
Oh, that's insane.
Understood.
Like, why would you say that God has a son?
That just sounds blasphemous, right?
I mean, it's definitely blasphemous. I mean, it is definitely. Like,
that's the most. Is that the most blasphemous thing? Probably.
I mean, like, even when I used to hear it, like at church back home, my heart used to skip a bit. You know, wow, he just said that Jesus is God's son. Even though, like, I say, at that time I heard it so many times, but I still like, okay, why would God have a son? Because in my family, you know, almost everybody is Muslim in my family, and saying that is not the best thing you should say.
Because it implies God had a relationship with a woman, right? Like something inappropriate.
Yeah, and not only that in Islam there's something that is so important, the key. God is one. God is one. There's nothing in God. There's no parts, no anything. God is one. His unicity is something. Is one of the foundations of Islam. It's actually the foundation of Islam. God is one. God is one. And so for you to say that God, there's three gods, somehow one God. But anyways, that is actually a very good questions, and I think it's a crucial questions that Christians should also like think about and not shy away from, because somebody will ask you one day. Somebody will ask you one day. So for me, again, I had some great people to talk to, and basically, if we look at science, okay, if we look at the cell, the human cell is so complex. We got all kinds of organs in this human cell. We got the nucleus, we got the mitochondria, the Golgi, all those different things. It's so complex, and somehow they work together, and somehow nutrients are traveling within each other, and just every single part of the cell is so unique and so complex that we will never be able to create anything like it. And if things like that is so complex, why should we expect God to be so simple? If God is God, if God reveals himself in one way, who are we to say, no, you're not like that? So it all comes down to, okay, did God really reveal himself as a Trinity, or as a, how do you call that? Just one, how do you call it? Just one God, one form, one. But that's a very valid question, and if you have that question, I'll encourage you to search for the truth. There are plenty of people to talk to. Go ahead and talk to other people as well. But for me, when I study science, I see the complexity in life, but there's also beauty. I can also think that if God can be true, if God can be three, he can be three. There's nothing that can stop it. I mean, I know people use this example a lot, but a little mosquito will never be able to understand cell phones, because it's like way out of his league and his world and his paradigm or whatever. But same thing, if God is so much higher than us, then his complexity will never be able to completely grasp his complexity. Just like a mosquito will never be able to unlock my phone. Impossible. Never impossible. So same way too. I mean, don't ever limit what God can do or who God is. Don't always be in wonder of who God is. Always be in wonder of who God is. Now there's a lot of debates. Why do we think God is a Trinity? If you want to talk about that, find somebody after this, because it's a long debate. But feel free to ask those questions. These are really important, because again, find the truth.